All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Distance from Center. I'm Trent.
I'm John, and we've got quite a bit to cover, and not a huge amount of time. So we're gonna just cut with the niceties and jump right to some tournament scores. So we had two tournaments over in France. Both of them were Malibu events. We had the Magic Malibu and then the actual Malibu Pro-Am. The big news really from the Magic is Manon Custard again running 39 into 41. It's going to stop being news soon, but I just don't think the skiing public has quite wrapped their head around how good this girl is yet, and that she's really a fixture in that top three in women's slalom. Kind of speed reading through this. Still at the Magic. First place was Robert Pagozzi. Looking across the rounds, he ran 4 at 41, 3 at 41, and 4 at 41. This kid's legit. It's no longer, hey, who's this kid that ran 41 once or twice? This kid's the real deal. Also notable is Trent, your boy, nephew, ran 3 and 3 at 41, and a 2 at 41. Have to mention Corey Vaughn skied well, 2.5 at 41, 2.5 at 41, 3 at 41, 3.25 at 41. And Sasha, the other guy who's really not new, but new to the top of the podium, 2.5 at 41, half at 41, 3 at 41, 3 at 41. 3 at 41 is no longer like a huge score. It seems like all those guys are pounding right through to it.
Yeah, and you know, like, it's funny, and it doesn't, like, to say it like this, it doesn't sound like that much. Like, 3 is kind of what 2 was 5 years ago, meaning 3 or 41 is, you know. And while that doesn't sound like much, but 5 years ago, 3 at 41 was like, you know, that was the deciding sort of, okay, in what percentile are you? Are you like the 99.8, or are you in the 99th percentile? And again, that doesn't seem like much, but that's, again, 5 years ago, that was a huge mountain that a lot of people, a lot of the best skiers in recent, you know, memory never achieved. So the fact that these young guys are doing it, and doing it with such consistency, 3s, 4s, Nephew, and Robert Pagozzi, you know, it was cool to see him get his first win, you know, because just like you said, he's gone through all the different stages of, okay, well, here's a kid who can put up a score when it doesn't matter. Man, he put up another score, and then all of a sudden, okay, he's putting up every score every weekend when it matters. So his first win, you can liken it to Neville a few years ago when he got that California win. This is going to be a changer in terms of what it's going to do for his confidence and what it's going to do consistently to the podium for the next few years.
Yeah. Okay, so that moves us on to the real Malibu, right? The big event. So noteworthy there. So Sasha, still not sure how to say his name. How do you say Sasha's last name?
I mean, I say Deschamps, but I mean, I could absolutely be wrong, and I'm comfortable with that.
Sasha,
but yes, Sasha.
Sasha, I apologize that we're Americans and don't speak French fluently. Sasha takes first place, French skier, again, 3 at 41, 3 at 41, 1.5 at 41, 3 at 41, 3 at 41. Massive consistency, knocking down mid-41 like it's nothing. Again, a year ago, I think people thought this kid was simmering kind of in the background. Now he's legit in the mix. Second place, Will Asher goes. We don't have to say how much respect we have for Asher. He's one of the best in the sport, one of the best athletes ever in the sport. With 2.5s and 3s at 41. Settlemeyer again in the mix. 2s and 3s at 41. Nephew. What did Nephew do? Nephew's got 2, 3 at 41, so it's kind of back to our theme. And then Fred Winter did not do well in the third round and got knocked out. Well, I say didn't do well, got half at 41. But in the second round...
And got knocked out.
Yeah. In the second round, he ran 41. I don't know if he fell out the gates or didn't get anywhere at 43, but he's got a 6 at 41 score there. I think that's the best tournament score he's had in maybe this year. Certainly he's capable. He's run 41
I think so.
A number of times. So the only takeaway I get from that tournament is I look at my notes, see my notes. All the pink, if you can see it, is all the scores into 41. That's a lot of scores into 41. This was This was a pretty aggressive event. So congratulations to all
Probably takeaway for me is, obviously Sasha, and anytime a new guy can take down someone like Will Asher without his level of experience, and if you're one step above Will, then you're one, obviously a few steps above the rest of the field. So that's really cool. And then the other one, is Freddie Winter's ability or willingness to just send it on his face when he thinks there's a chance that it's going to give him an extra quarter buoy. For as long as I've been doing this, I've never seen anyone crash that often, that willingly, or willingly put his body on the line over and over and over and over. So he's a nut job, and it makes it really, really exciting to watch because you never assume he's out.
So let me say this, everybody out there that doesn't know what we're talking about, if you can find Freddie Winter's Instagram account, it's like F Winter, I think, or the F Winter or something. There is on his Instagram, there's a video of his crash in France, and it is just jaw-droppingly brutal. I mean, the dude is like, I would lay in bed for a couple of days. It'd be like a jump crash for me. So, moving on to women's, the other big note, again, surprise, surprise, I guess it shouldn't be news anymore. Manon Custard, 1 at 41, half at 41, half at 41. She's knocking down 39s like it's nothing. I guess officially I have to stop treating it like news because she runs 39.
Yep.
And
I think she's absolutely incredible. I think the bigger news is, well, that's not fair to say the bigger news, but worthy to note is that Regina's not traveling to these events, and Whitney's injured, thus not traveling to these events, and that is not obviously, that doesn't take away from someone running 39 over and over and over and over. It just it would be a lot nicer to see a full field to see how things play out. But that's injury is part of sport, and obligations are part of life. So if Regina's obviously has too much on the go to be traveling at the moment, and Whitney's rehabbing, likely getting ready for the Pan Ams, which is really important as a national team member. So amazing skiing on both sides, men's and women's over there.
Okay, so moving on back to the United States, this weekend in Michigan it was cold and breezy, 15 mile an hour gusts, 55 to 60 degree water temps. For most of us that ski a lot this time of year, that's a little jarring, right? What are your water temps at home?
83, 84 at the moment.
Well, so again,
yeah. I think having been at that site in Michigan, the wind is far less of a factor given the tree coverage there, but those temperatures are the real deal. That's shocking, especially for some of those guys who are coming up from Florida and they're in 85 degree water, 90 degree air, and that's a slap in the face.
Right, for sure. So the big story, or the conclusion of the whole thing is Jeff Rogers wins the finals. He runs 39 5 times in the final head-to-head to get there. So every time he saw that 39 move, he ran, got into 41. He went up against Canadian boy you may know, Mr. Todd Johnson, who's been really injured, right? So I've got some notes on that, but maybe you can just fill it in about Todd.
Yeah, I'm not sure the exact date, but I know he did have back surgery. I think it was towards the end of last season. I did a little skiing with him this spring, and I think that's kind of when he was, getting his feet wet again. But for, by getting his feet wet, I mean running 39 up and down the lake. But Todd is one of those guys that, I've had the, pleasure to coach him and work with him since back in the days when he was, trying to run 39, or more accurately running 39 to 36 miles an hour. So he's been good for a really long time. He found himself in a position where he could, take some early retirement a few years ago, and He's skiing and skiing and skiing, minus the back surgery. This guy, he's got like the body of a 25-year-old. He's the fittest guy for his age I've ever seen through a ton of hard work, man. He and to speak to his skiing, he's like one of those guys. He's like, when people say classic style, that's Todd. Like he's one of those guys that you're like, hey, if you want to kind of see how it's supposed to look at Todd Johnson. He's always ahead of the boat. He's always over his feet. And things. He doesn't get too rattled because of it. He's a very good skier, and I was expecting this kind of success from him, quite a while ago. But to watch him just work his way through, I know he ran 39 in the qualifying, and then just kept getting deep enough 39 every head-to-head to work all the way to the final. So that's from a viewer's standpoint, to watch the classic Jeff Rogers, the guy that everyone expects to win, and then to watch someone who's relatively unknown compared to a Dave Miller or Greg Vidal or Chad Scott, to watch Todd Johnson work his way through that whole field and end up in the final matchup. That's pretty cool. So I was psyched for him, and a lot of people were just really excited to see a fresh face work his way through the entire field.
Good point. So
I have a question for you. Who's quick. Yeah, who's Mark Manaski, and why is he so darn good? Do you know who that is? And maybe I'm saying his last name wrong.
Manashi, I've met him a number of times. I know I know his face. I'd see him I think he's like from Arizona. He's a nice guy. He's a hell of a skier.
Sweet.
I can't tell you much else about him. I mean, he's coming to Ball Spray Cash Prize in a couple of weeks. You aren't, so he's a better man.
All right. I just was looking at that list and just saw like 639, 639, 639 as he was working his way through. I was like, holy crap. I love when there's a name I don't recognize and they're putting up like some of the best scores in the world.
Well, yeah, I agree. So, yeah, first round 639, second round 639, and then 439. Rogers takes him down. He ran a 639. So, I mean, it's tough stuff.
Yeah.
And, these guys, you said the wind wasn't bad. I understand they had quite a bit of a tailwind for the 39 in the final, whichever way they took it. So, I mean, 39 tailwind is not...
Yeah, I saw some video.
Not necessarily ideal. Okay. All right. Well, so congratulations, Jeff Rogers. A guy you gotta love. One of the nicest guys in water skiing. Great to see him back on top. Our final subject of this show is, I guess it's a controversy. A number of weeks ago, there was a Class L tournament held. And after the tournament, video from some of the boat path was submitted regionally, nationally, and internationally for review. And the entire tournament got downgraded from L, not just to C, but all the way to F.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've seen the video, Trent's seen the video. The boat path is clearly not Class L quality.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody is going to say this was acceptable. There is some dispute. There's some really strong opinions of, was it weaving to the advantage of the skier, or was it weaving because the driver was uncomfortable with that boat, or, I guess to me the difference is that there's a clear difference between intentionally moving the boat back and forth and unintentionally just putting the boat in the wrong place and not keeping the pylon down the middle. The other uncomfort level I have is, so this driver has been, I believe this is official, has had his driver's rating rescinded for a year, and he's going to have to submit boat path video in another year of any Class C tournaments he skis or drives for. And I mean, to me, this is a little bit, it's potentially quite a bit heavy-handed. And then the flip side of my uncomfort with this is everybody that I know on the drivers committee, these are people I really respect.
Mm-hmm.
These are people that I look at and I don't think politics or dishonesty. These are people I trust. These are people I listen to. I know a number of other people at the high end of the sport that have viewed the video and they're like appalled with the quality. So it's not necessarily a black and white deal. And Trent, I know you have some strong opinions, so I'm just going to
no, I mean everything you said is really accurate. And the same thing, like with these guys on the driving committee who had to make these tough decisions. I have a real problem with this swift action, and the lack of due process that is structurally in place with USA Water Ski. So before I went on assumption, I mean, I called the driver in question and watched the video, and he never received a phone call. He never received any. No one asked him to explain why he was driving so poorly that day. I watched the video, and you know, it was he was having a bad day. To watch it, like, my instinct was bad driving, not weaving like that. Like I didn't look at that and be like, that'd be a great opportunity for me to run 41. It looked like he was you know, losing a battle against a skier every pass. You know, he snuck in a couple good pulls. So when I saw the video, called the driver. Just said no one's ever called him. No one's ever asked him, you know, if he was having an off day, if he didn't like the boat, what the deal was, you know. So through our conversation, here's a guy who is a volunteer in a state that has fewer senior drivers than you can count on one hand. So he had been, from what I was told, 3 drivers statewide. So he was coerced isn't the right word, but he was encouraged. Hey, let's get you rated so we can have more tournaments here. We can be more self-sufficient. And this guy, being the volunteer that he is, and that's coming from him and from from other people in the state that have leaned on him for years. He went through the process, checked all the boxes, got rated. On a side note, a very important side note, he owns a Nautique 200, which notoriously plow a straight line through the water. There's no boat that's easier to if nothing else, keep dead straight. Gets to a record, gets plopped in a Centurion, which I think drive just fine if you know how to drive them. I think they drive great if you know how to drive them. But it was a right-leaning Centurion with a mixed bag of skiers, and he typically drives for a few people at his lake, and all of a sudden he's introduced to some guys at 39 and 41 off, which he's done 4 or 5 times in his life. You know, he didn't have a chance, and all that aside, I'm all about the sanctity of the rule book, and I'm all about fair play and the whole deal, but how are we asking these drivers, and especially, he's been a senior driver for about 5 years, but again, he's in a state with not where there's 25 records a year, so he doesn't get to drive as often as a driver in Florida or somewhere else. But we're asking this guy to be completely infallible, and when he does make a mistake, if it was in fact a mistake, we're not even offering him a chance to voice his side. Like, hey man, that sucked. That was the worst driving I've ever seen. What's the deal? I had a bad day. I didn't like the boat. It was right leaning. I couldn't get it to level. I drove like crap. Or even if it's, man, I was sick. I was hungover. Whatever. You should be able to at least defend yourself. You should at least, and I'm not saying those scores should count, because I look at that and I'm like, nope, downgrade that thing. That's downgraded all day. That's fine. Or downgrade each athlete who received a drive that didn't fall into what is required of the driver, but to then suspend him, and not just downgrade him, suspend him for a year, because obviously if he doesn't practice for a year, he'll be a way better driver 12 months from now, so that makes a lot of sense. And then from there, now you're down to a year from now, after you haven't had any practice, you're going to be downgraded to an assistant driver or whatever, or a regular driver, sorry. None of this is about education. None of this is about helping our drivers. This is a heavy-handed rush to judgment without due process. And again, this isn't the fault of the committees. This is that we're lacking proper structure for how these things happen. And it's happened in the past a few times where I didn't agree with it then either, but I'm like, okay, well, these guys had negative rumors surrounding them, and in my opinion, unfair rumors, but at least I'm like, well, I can see how there was this rush to judgment. This guy, where he drives, this isn't a score factory. He's not the driver that everyone clamors to get behind. He's an up-and-coming driver that we just kicked out. So, to be fair, that my conversation with him was 2 days ago. At that point, he hadn't heard anything other than rumor that he was getting a suspension, and the fact that he received a call saying, hey, you're not allowed to drive the next tournament. We'll fill you in when we get better details. So hopefully some of this has, there's been a better, or cooler heads have prevailed a little bit since we spoke 2 days ago, but it didn't sound like much was going to change. So I just think it's unfair. His quote was, I never said I was the best driver in the world. I try my best. I'm a volunteer because I love the sport and I love the people. And all of a sudden, with no explanation, I'm out. So he's like, man, I've got kids. So it's probably a better use of my time to be doing stuff with them on Saturdays instead of working at a tournament where I'm really not appreciated anyway. So my 2 cents, a little bit of a rant, but I just feel like we need to remember, like, even at the expense of what might look like cheating, we need to remember, like, these guys are volunteers. And without these volunteers and without people that are willing to sacrifice their family time, their personal time, none of this stuff happens. None of these events make. So I don't know. Again, it's not the fault of anyone that was asked to judge his driving, because if I was on a committee, I would have judged his driving as vastly inferior on that day also. But I would have, like I did, I would have called him and asked for an explanation. And the explanation I received was super sound and made a heck of a lot of sense. Thinking back to my own driving experience when I was younger and got caught in a boat I didn't trust or know, and I didn't have the confidence to stay in my zone when I'd only been a senior driver for 5 years. So that's my rant.
Well, it looks like, as we do often, we've had a technical difficulty, and that's Trent's message to you guys about driving. Really appreciate you guys watching the show. We'll be back in a week or two with news from the California Pro-Am, the Ball Spray Cash Prize, and whatever else happens in the meantime. Thank you.